1 in 5 adults in the U.S. experience a mental illness. That is about 40 million Americans. Approximately 1 in 25 or 10 million adults live with a serious mental illness.
My name is Jody Lyons, and I am a parent educator here at NAMI, Minnesota. As a parent educator, I work both with parents as well as working with schools to bring programming into schools around suicide prevention. Well, mental health is definitely very prevailing today. It's becoming more and more talked about, which is nice, so we're hearing more and more about the relevance of it and how much there is out there. Absolutely not. There's still so much stigma around mental health that people are still fearful of going to seek help for it. And because of that, it's not getting the attention that it needs within the social media, the news, the newspapers, all different types of media. And when they do have a tendency to discuss it, it's almost more of in a negative aspect, and they share the negative stories that are usually incorrect.
350 million people worldwide are affected by depression. Obsessive-compulsive disorder is thought to affect 1 to 3% of the population. For some, it begins following a traumatic experience, but others, about 30%, have no clear triggers. 18.1% of adults in the U.S. experience an anxiety disorder such as PTSD, OCD, and specific phobias. .6% of adults live with bipolar disorder. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder most often occurs in children. 6.4 million children ages 4 through 17 have been diagnosed. Mental health is more common than many may think. When it comes to mental health, there are many different factors to it. There are many disorders or illnesses that are involved, each of them being specifically different for each person individually. It is not the same for all. It is also no less important than physical health. I decided to also interview a fellow classmate to get a different perspective.
I think there should definitely be more light brought to it, because I remember being in my health class and we would spend like 3 weeks on like sex and stuff and like STDs and all that, but then when it came to the mental health, I remember like spending maybe about a week, and it was definitely shorter. And I feel like there's just not much awareness in the school. Like, yeah, sure, teachers and counselors always say how you can come and talk to them, but it's not that advertised.
Stigma is a mark of disgrace, and for mental health, it causes people to ignore how real mental illnesses are, and or makes them believe they are not treatable.
I get very angry about it because I grew up in such, with it all around me. My mother lives with schizophrenia, and I have a brother that lives with bipolar disorder. And then me having my diagnosis being as young as I was, to me, I really believed that that was the norm. You know, I didn't really wasn't subjected to the stigma around it really until I had grown up into adulthood. And as I was having conversations with other people, that's when I really learned about how much the stigma has an effect on people. Even more specifically, I found it very interesting that a parent felt it better to say that their child was in a juvenile detention center instead of just saying they were in the hospital receiving treatment for their illness. Wow. It's anxiety disorder is what the child was living with.
Oh my God,
so that really portrays the stigma around that, where they're willing to say one thing versus another. And then another big impact for me around stigma that affected me personally was I had an individual tell me that I couldn't live with illness because I was happy and outgoing and talkative and smiling.
Oh.
And I just thought, wow, really? So this person had this perception or this stigma that with mental illness that people cannot function and be happy, which is, couldn't be further from the truth.
It's definitely annoying, aggravating. I have a couple of friends who will say things like, "This is giving me OCD," or "I'm so depressed," or "My anxiety is bothering me right now." And when you say things like, "Oh, I'm so depressed," when you're actually just sad about something, you're kind of normalizing like the depression. Depression is kind of where you're just unmotivated to do anything. It's emptiness, it's dropping grades, it's you never going to class, it's you shutting yourself out from everyone, and it's so much more than just sadness.
Lately, people have been romanticizing mental illnesses and treating them as a trend instead of a serious health condition. Mental health is not something that should be taken lightly. It is a serious issue and should be properly addressed.
Definitely hurting the community, most certainly. They have definitely come along on a positive note. There's working more towards it, but there's still the stories they're sharing, when they say this person, committed this crime, and they lived with depression. So they're making this connection that it's their illness that caused their action, when statistics prove that people that live with illness are more likely to be the subject of violence or victimization and bullying and whatnot.
I think something that can really help is people need to stop belittling it, and treat it as if it's not a big deal, because it is a big deal. It's your mental health. That's kind of a huge thing. And I wish people would learn more about different kinds of mental health, and that I'm not crazy. I'm struggling a little bit, and I wish people would kind of learn and understand that. My advice to those who are suffering and who are kind of denying the fact that they have a mental illness is, please stop. Because it's not helping you, and it's not helping the people around you and people or those who care for you. It gets harder if you kind of deny it. And for me personally, I had to go into therapy multiple times, and I learned a bunch of coping skills and just things that really helped me kind of minimize or calm down all of my mental illnesses. So I really, it is a journey trying to figure out what works best for you, but it definitely is a process, and I know it sounds kind of cliche, but you aren't alone, and things will get better, but you really have to work on yourself.
About 56% of adults in the U.S. do not receive treatment. That is a consequence of stigma. Educate yourself and help end the stigma.